Welcome back. As an old train conductor, I've had my share of eerie experiences. Each is unique and bone-chilling. I want to share 3 of them with you tonight. Prepare yourself for a ride into the abyss of horror. Our first tale starts on a chilling winter night. The snow was falling like ash from a fiery sky, blanketing the rails in a thick white layer. The train was a late-night express, carrying a handful of passengers through the heartland. It wasn't unusual for folks to doze off, but a particular passenger, a young woman with eyes full of unease, stayed awake, glancing around nervously. She caught my attention. I tried to comfort her, but as I approached, she recoiled, whispering, "I see them. Can't you see them?" I followed her gaze to the empty seats but saw nothing. The hair on my neck stood up as she kept repeating, "They are coming for us." Suddenly the lights flickered, the train jerked violently, then all went dark. We were derailed, stuck in the middle of nowhere. I fumbled for my flashlight, its narrow beam slicing through the darkness. The girl was gone, vanished into thin air. We never found her, but her horrified whispers still echo in my ears on the coldest of nights. Our second tale is a story of an old abandoned station. This station, long forsaken by time and forgotten by maps, was said to house the anguished spirit of a trainman who had met his untimely demise on the tracks. Late-night trains sometimes had to pass by the station due to maintenance work on the main line. On one such night, my train was detoured. As we rolled past the derelict station, a horrifying sight met my eyes. There, standing on the platform, was a ghostly figure, his signal lamp still aglow, forever waiting to guide his lost train home. I quickly averted my gaze, but passengers who saw him reported that they felt an indescribable dread, a cold shiver that ran deep into their bones. To this day, I shudder at the thought of the phantom train man. Our final story takes place aboard the cursed Midnight Express, the train that was never meant to run. It was said that this train only appeared to those destined for doom. One such night, against my better judgment, I found myself at the helm of this spectral locomotive. As I walked down the aisle, checking the compartments, I felt a chilling wind gust through the closed windows. Suddenly, I noticed a shadowy figure in the last compartment. As I moved closer, my blood ran cold. The figure was me. But this other me had empty eyes, a ghastly hollow grin, and an air of death that was almost palpable. I turned and ran, but no matter how fast I sprinted, the figure always seemed just a step behind, his chilling laughter echoing in my ears. I never returned to that cursed train, but sometimes on moonlit nights I can still see it, hear its whistle, and feel the dread of my doppelganger. These are but a few tales from my eerie past as a train conductor. I tell you these not to scare you, but to remind you trains are not just machines. They carry souls, stories, fears, and sometimes even the supernatural. Now, whenever you board a train, remember my tales. And if you feel a cold wind, see a shadowy figure, or hear whispers in the stillness, be warned. You're in for a ride of horror. As a train conductor of many years, I had grown familiar with the regular rhythms and routines of the job. But one train route, the 9:15 p.m. to Midnight Hollow, always filled me with unease. It wasn't the late hour or the fact that Midnight Hollow was an isolated hamlet. It was the passenger that boarded the train every Friday, at the old Durlington stop. He was an older gentleman, always impeccably dressed in a vintage conductor's uniform from the 19th century. He carried an old pocket watch, always synchronized perfectly to the train's schedule. He would sit silently during the journey, staring out of the window into the night. One night, out of curiosity, I decided to engage him in conversation. He introduced himself as Albert, a retired train conductor. His stories were fascinating, tales of steam locomotives and grand old stations that no longer existed. One story in particular caught my attention. Albert spoke of a train accident on the very same route we were traveling. A steam engine, he said, had derailed one stormy night many years ago, causing many casualties. His words sent a chill down my spine. I asked him when this happened, and he looked at me, his eyes filled with a timeless sorrow. Exactly 100 years ago, tonight, he said, his voice barely a whisper. At that moment, the train gave a sudden lurch, the lights flickered, and then we were plunged into darkness. When the emergency lights came on, Albert was gone. His absence was as inexplicable as his presence. I later discovered that the old conductor's uniform he wore was the exact replica of the uniform the victims of the accident had worn. The realization hit me like a bolt of lightning. I had been talking to the ghost of the conductor who died in that crash a century ago. From then on, every time I had to work the 9:15 p.m. route to Midnight Hollow, I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. The ghostly encounter with the Timeless Conductor remains one of the most chilling experiences of my career. A constant reminder that some trains carry more than just passengers. They carry the echoes of their haunted past. In the small town of Newbury, I was well known as the old railway man, spending most of my life working on the local train lines. But there was one route I always dreaded, the midnight train to the decommissioned Miskatonic station. Miskatonic station was said to be haunted. Stories were whispered about passengers who went missing from that train, never to be seen again. The railway company officially closed the station years ago, but the midnight train inexplicably continued to stop there. One winter night, we had an unexpected passenger on the midnight run, a small boy, all alone. He was clutching an old teddy bear and had a ticket to Miskatonic. Despite my protests, the boy insisted on going there, saying he was visiting his grandmother. Unable to dissuade him and against all my instincts, I let him stay on the train. As the night deepened, we approached the forgotten Miskatonic station. An icy wind seemed to permeate the train, and I shivered as we stopped at the deserted platform. The boy got off the train, walking into the darkness towards the old station house. I followed, the sense of unease growing stronger with every step. Inside the old building, we found an old woman waiting. She greeted the boy as her grandson and thanked me for bringing him. But there was something deeply unsettling about her. Her eyes seemed too dark, her smile too hollow. As we returned to the train, I looked back. The boy was waving goodbye, but the woman was gone. The station house was dark, lifeless. In the following days, I did some digging and found that a boy matching the passenger's description had disappeared from Newbury 50 years ago. He was last seen heading towards the Miskatonic station to visit his grandmother. I never worked the midnight train after that. The memory of the boy and the haunted Miskatonic station was a chilling reminder of the spectral passengers and ghostly encounters hidden in the shadows of the quiet tracks. Early in my career as a train conductor, I heard rumors of a phantom train carriage that appeared only on full moon nights. The legend of the 13th carriage intrigued me, but I dismissed it as a ghost story until I encountered it myself. It was during one of my night shifts on the cross-country line. We were running the long haul from north to south, a journey that cut through expansive forests and sleepy towns. The train had 12 carriages, but on that fateful night, there was an additional unaccounted carriage attached at the very end. The 13th carriage seemed older, rustier than the others. There was a palpable sense of unease around it. Despite my apprehension, curiosity took over, and I decided to investigate. Inside, the carriage was dimly lit, filled with passengers who seemed out of place. They were dressed in clothes from different eras, their faces masked by an unnatural gloom. The passengers didn't acknowledge my presence. They stared blankly at their hands, the floor, or the windows. An old lady was humming a lullaby to a child. A soldier in a World War II uniform sat stiffly. A young couple in Victorian clothes whispered to each other, their voices too low to comprehend. Feeling a chill creeping up my spine, I stepped out of the carriage and rushed back to the driver's cabin. When I dared to glance back, the 13th carriage was gone. The rest of the night passed in an eerie silence, with only the rhythmic clatter of the train to keep me company. The encounter left me shaken. I later learned that the 13th carriage was said to be a refuge for souls who had died during their journeys, forever bound to travel in their ghostly carriage. From then on, every time a full moon lit up the sky, I'd find myself glancing back, half expecting to see the phantom 13th carriage. Its memory is a haunting reminder of the spectral riders forever trapped between their departure and their final destination. I'll never forget my 3 encounters with the strange and horrifying. I traveled a lot in my youth, always by train. Something about the steady rhythm of the wheels against the tracks, the distant landscapes blurring by, held a soothing charm for me. But that charm was forever tarnished after these experiences. The first incident occurred on a midnight train to Chicago. It was an old model, its red seats threadbare and worn. It was late and I was the only one awake. A sense of unease began to creep in, as though the train were alive watching me. Then the lights went out. I felt a chill run down my spine, the air turning cold. When the lights flickered back on, a figure appeared at the far end of the carriage, a woman in a white dress, her face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. She was eerily still. And then, without warning, she sprinted towards me. I closed my eyes in terror, and when I opened them, she was gone. But on the seat next to me was an old newspaper. The headline? A woman had jumped from this very train 50 years ago that night. My second experience was on a daytime journey across the countryside. I was staring out the window when I noticed something odd about the reflection. It didn't mirror the carriage accurately. In the reflection, the seats were old, torn, and one was soaked with a dark stain. When I turned, the carriage was as it should be, clean and modern. But in the reflection, a man appeared, seated on the stained seat, his face twisted in agony. And as the train passed a historical plaque that mentioned a deadly derailment on this route, the reflection vanished. The final story occurred on a snowbound journey through the mountains. The train stopped abruptly. An avalanche, the conductor announced. As we waited, I saw a group of figures through the swirling snow, walking towards the train. They looked like stranded passengers. We let them aboard, but as they stepped into the light, I saw their frozen faces, their open eyes filled with frost. The conductor fell to his knees, recognizing them as passengers of a train lost to an avalanche years ago. And as he crossed himself, the figures vanished, leaving only a trail of melted snow on the floor. After these experiences, the soothing rhythm of the wheels against the tracks became a harbinger of the unknown, a reminder of the unseen. To this day, the sight of a train sends a shiver down my spine, a phantom echo of chilling encounters, forever etched into my memory. The next time you board a train, you too may catch a glimpse of the strange and terrifying, the unseen passengers that ride alongside us. Or perhaps you already have. Sleep well, if you can.